Did you know that there is a safe space where you can excel in academics, in sports, and in life while still being yourself and having a safe space to make mistakes? Yeah, Mike Campbell at Long Beach created just that. In this amazing deep dive, you will hear all about his systems and philosophies and how he approaches athletes and what do you need to do to be able to attend Long Beach State. So let's dive right in. This one is a really amazing one. Thank you again for taking the time. You have a long legacy behind you at Long Beach, and I saw some of your conversations. I think there is a lot of wisdom and a lot of knowledge, and the way you go about things, how you put things together, how you look at players, how you treat players, and how you make them feel, and how you put it all together in that whole recruiting process. And I think the parents and girls need to know that, because I've been in that, and they are all stressed. They are afraid of, they are kind of afraid of coaches because they don't know what to expect.
Yeah, totally. I would agree. I mean, you don't want players and families making decisions, with those emotions in their head. You want to make them very clear. And, I know the transfer portal, sometimes there's advantages to that, but for the most part, I think in our sport, especially in the community of beach volleyball, that relationship you can build with a coach, it's going to impact you as an adult. It's going to impact your family in a positive way. It can, right? And so really getting to know people on that level, I think it makes the recruiting process, or I should say it makes the lessons you can learn through sport in that college environment really, really impactful. And I think that's what ultimately, if you have to drill down about any sport, if you have a parent and you give them, hey, okay, you have scenario one, your daughter or your son is going to go to this school, and irrelevant of how many championships or matches they win, they are going to be better people. They're going to be prepared for, to do hard things. They're going to be able to articulate themselves and speak up for themselves. They're going to be empowered, and they're going to come back to you and be a really, really good ambassador of a community, a university, and a sport. Scenario one, and then scenario two, they're going to win 4 championships, but they're going to be sad and upset, and some of the bigger emotions that and there's so many examples of professional athletes that have won the premier trophy in their sport, and they still have to deal with the demons, and they've just been pushing them away for so long. So ultimately, to get back to what you're saying, I think it's critical in the recruitment process, and that's one of at least my strategies, is give families and players a realistic insight into what that map looks like, versus here are all the bells and whistles, commit for those reasons, but then, some of the more, I think, life things, some of the more lesson-based things, you kind of wait, we'll deal with those when we get to them. Those are where the substance really is, I think. And the more you can articulate that in recruiting, I think the better that athlete and their family can make a really, really good decision. And then there's loyalty, there's community, there's a sense of belonging, really, inclusiveness.
That's so wonderfully said. And so, you just put it all in one comprehensive package that people can say, oh, now I see how he is approaching things, and now I see how I should approach things. However, from their perspective, it's not often truth. But let's put a pin here, and throughout the things that you said, dealing with demons, and bringing some culture and some understanding into the team that you are building, which is essentially a business. And if you can elaborate on that, I know I said those questions, so we know what to follow, but we can freely venture in and out and take a detour and bypass. And so if you can elaborate on that, because I think it is a big topic. People coming with fears, with demons, coming with your players that you already recruited. You have them for some time, and you're an amazing human being that tries to make them complete human beings, right? You're the guide on the way, and you're trying to send them to life, whether it's a sport life or business life or personal life, as a more complex personalities. And so if you can elaborate on that, how that throughout those 10 years, or is it the 10 years or is it 2016, or when did you start? Do you remember?
2015. So this will be my 12th season.
12th season. How throughout those 12 years did this approach and this mentality and this philosophy evolve? Where were you? Where are you right now? And how are you able to build such an amazing legacy of those players? Because to be honest, I know a few teams that are really hard blue-collar workers ethic, and yours is one of those. And so I think in that large scale of D1 teams that there is, I think people need to know what each team represents. So it's not, their hunt is not like, oh, I'm getting more money here, or I'm getting, what is it in that school that resonates with me, and what am I going for, and what am I be putting myself into, and how it's going to benefit my journey.
Yeah, I mean, you're bringing up some great topics, and I can tell you this: it took us a while to get it right. It has not been very easy. That journey of 12 years of cultivating kind of where we're at now. However much I want to just take credit for that, it really is all about the players. We've had some tremendous players that have been really, really talented, and we've had the ability and the privilege to kind of cultivate that talent, doing things that I played, I did when I was a junior and did when I started coaching AVP. And so they allowed me to do a lot of experimentation on the volleyball side to figure out the systems I'm building. And it was so fun because I'm a very, problem solver type of person. And so the volleyball has always, I think that's been, if we had to compartmentalize, that's been the easy part for us, is figuring out what we want to look like as volleyball players. I think the hard part, because I started when I was 25, as a coach, as a head coach, is managing, like you said, the diversity of a team, the culture of a team, bringing together ultimately 16 to 22 people that want the same thing, but only 10 are going to really truly accomplish that at one given time. And so dealing with the fallout of team culture when you've got to sit there and tell someone that they're not quite there yet, but they're doing everything right, but 10 other gals are just doing one thing more. You know what I mean? And so it took a long time of how to deliver that. I've been through every iteration of myself to soften, to be tough, to be this, to be that. And so it really is, it comes down to, for me, to answer that in this current phase. And I appreciate what you said about our team being, blue collar. We definitely are a team that we want to be known for how hard we work. We want to be known for how creative we play this game, that we can get it done without having all of the 6'5" girls or the 6'2" girls or the top recruits. And not to say our athletes aren't talented. I just think in this sport, you can develop far beyond your innate talent. You can, if you have a growth mindset, you can catch up to, if not pass, talent that does not work hard. And so I just echo that quite a bit. But I think ultimately the biggest thing, if I had to pick one thing, is in our program, we will teach you how to be a great teammate. We'll teach you teamwork. We'll teach you to value teamwork and your teammates, regardless of what your role is as a starter or as a reserve or an alternate or whatever, a freshman and a senior, a beginner, transfer, whatever. It doesn't really matter how you come to us. We're going to teach you how you can blend your moral compass that you bring to us from your family, from your past coaches, from your past school team, fill in the blank. We're going to blend that with our community at Long Beach, which is a very volleyball-centric community. We're going to blend that with my core values, as a program, and we have 9 of them. We're going to blend that with different people from different backgrounds and different talent levels and different goals, and we're going to turn you guys into great teammates. That's not to say everybody's best friends. We definitely have our share of conflicts internally, but we're going to teach you to value that everything in life moving forward is going to require team. It's going to require teamwork. It's going to require leadership. It's going to require courage. I shouldn't say everything, but the big things, the moments in life where you're going to make core memories and the people you're going to surround yourself. You as a graduate get to choose who those people are. I want my athletes when they graduate, these women to know this is what I stand for. This is who I choose to surround myself with. This is who I choose to be. This is what I want to embody. And so ultimately, to answer your question, that, the thing that makes us special, I think, is the willingness to go through that journey. And it's not pretty, it's not right. You see the end and you see the beginning, but the internal of that we keep in-house. And that's where, you're learning a lot about yourself. So I think that's what has become really important to me. And I was so lucky early on that I was just dealing with great human beings and I didn't have to focus on that so much. And now we still have great human beings, but we're in a generation, especially of college athletics, where, a lot of these athletes are coming from high school where they experienced COVID. They lack a lot of social and emotional intelligence. And so we get to do that through sport. And it becomes so important because those bonds, this weekend, I just went to a wedding of one of my former players, and it was so cool to see, all of her friends up there with her were teammates, and then the organic conversations we can have. I haven't seen some of these players in 5 years, and we've just been emailing and texting, and, I'll send them an update and pictures of my kids, via email, our alumni list. But then you just fall right back into where you were when you were in the trenches playing, the rival. It's such an easy code switch to do when you have all that shared, purpose. You shared so much purpose together. And so it's just a cool thing when you see that happening 5 years down the road after they've graduated. And it shows me that we got lucky early on, and then we developed it. And now we're starting to reap the benefits of that as a program, just seeing our alumni in that way and being able to really drive home that point to our current team of how important teamwork and culture and, there's other buzzwords, but I won't go too long on this point. But yeah, I just think that's one of the biggest things for me I focus on now is how we can bring 19 different individuals together to accomplish the same goal without the egos getting in the way of that. And I'll leave it at that because there's so much to branch off of from there. But that's the puzzle for me, not as much the volleyball anymore. I think we've got a really good, volleyball playbook.
Right. That is just fabulous. Again, this is so amazing about coaches that have some maturity in them and experience that are able to so eloquently and in a very digestible way express and describe their program and their core values. By the way, I know you said you don't want to venture out and I still want to have a little bit for people to understand. And not only, I take it always almost like a 3-part equation, right? It's you here, it's me that I'm just asking questions, but the other 2 parts are parents and athletes, and the third part is the coaches, club coaches and high school coaches that are trying to build a team on their own and trying to instill some sort of culture. And I think if you can elaborate a little bit, maybe on your core values, and maybe, so there would be one thing, elaborate a little bit on them so people understand what are those. And second thing would be, if you can, because I have you as a master of systems. What you described right now, you are, I think, I can put you anywhere on the planet and you would be within a few years able to build a functioning business, a club, a team, whatever that is, put you on a deserted island and you can put whoever is there, whatever animals are there together, and you guys can build a boat and go back. So if you can elaborate a little bit on your core values as a team and a little bit on those systems that have worked for you and have brought you this fruit, because this fruit of Eden, because I think if your former athlete invites you for a wedding after 5 years, I think creating connections for life, that is the ultimate goal, right? So,
well, that's very high praise. Thank you for speaking on that compliment of sticking me on a deserted island. I'm not so sure. We'll see. But yeah. I think the core values for me are huge. So right behind me, I've got John Williams here. So I'm a product of UCLA. I've been very fortunate in my coaching career. I didn't realize it at the time. I didn't want to be a coach early on. I didn't know that was my calling. But I got to work for Andy Benikowski, Kim Jade, Mike Seeley, all while I was at UCLA, obviously playing for Al Skates. Then I came here, worked for Brian Gimolero, worked with Joy Furbringer, some big names in the sport that had exactly what you described. Whether I agreed with their systems or not, it didn't matter. each of them were experts at something they did that was, authentic to them. And
Right.
so my takeaway was, well, what's authentic to me? What do I believe in? And how can I take something from each of these people that were coaches for decades, 30, 40 years, and successful? Even if I disagreed with the X's and O's, they were still pioneers, trailblazers, champions. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
And so I just, with the way my brain worked, like you said, it's very systems. I said, okay, well, I loved Andy, how organized Andy Banikowski was with his practice plans. So I now have every practice plan for the last 10 years either written out.
Wow.
Nowadays, it's more on technology. I've got Excel spreadsheets of macro practice plans from fall all the way through spring. I've got tabs of different years, different drills. So I have this kind of encyclopedia of information that allows me to pull what worked for this type of player, what worked for this drill, what worked for, and now we have it all kind of summarized in a playbook. It's 60 some odd pages. We've got table of contents, hyperlinks. We've got we for many years during COVID, we were able to pull a lot of YouTube clips of professional athletes doing this stuff. So we've been very resourceful with our time as a staff. I was very lucky to have Christian Cold, who's now the head coach at Oregon, and Sinjin's now my assistant. We've been together long enough to where we've really built our language and our diction and our rhetoric. So we've streamlined and packaged information for athletes. So system stuff for us, we can, like you said, we can get it to where it's digestible, to where it makes sense. You know what I mean? The athletes are going to kind of at first be kind of green with it, and then we drill it, we watch it on film, and then we reproduce it in a better way the next time. Very growth mindset, right? So we've been able to kind of blend the systems with the mindset, and then the core values is all the other stuff. So we have 9. So I'll go through them real quick. They're in the shape of a pyramid. I wish I had a graphic. I could send it to you after. You could attach it to the podcast or something.
That would be great.
Yeah, we did it for NCAAs, and they put it out there. It was really cool to see and just kind of get out there. But our bottom, so we have 6 core values inside the pyramid. Our bottom 3 kind of founding blocks: respect, habits, communication. And so we kind of set the expectations in our program that everybody embodies those. Our upperclassmen lead by example. Our underclassmen are adopting and implementing routines to promote really good effort in those 3 areas, right? Respecting their opportunity, respecting the community, respecting our university, respecting the program, building good habits. I mean, this is the first time a lot of athletes are on their own. And Long Beach State is a social campus. We are in the middle of Los Angeles, Orange County. There's so much to do, so many places to go. I want our athletes to fully immerse in the culture that you can be a Southern California beach volleyball athlete. Like, how cool is that? But I also want them to build good habits around school, practice, their body, their mind. So we introduce a lot of those things. And then communication is another cornerstone block. And that is just proper communication. Like, there's a lot of fear when athletes come in. Fear of failure, fear of saying the wrong thing, fear of being judged, fear of not being good enough, fear of not, lack of approval from upperclassmen, captains, coaches, whoever. So just communicating that, hey, we acknowledge that. That's okay. Some of the best things we've done have come from a place of nervousness or fear, right? And that's where one of our other core values on the outside of our pyramid that we embody daily is courage. So we've got to have the courage, and that the way we define that is being afraid but acting anyways. And so I'm getting a little abstract with the pyramid here, but our bottom 3, communication, habits, respect. Our outer core values are courage, compete, and joy. We want those every day. We're competing, we're winning, we're trying to perform. That is kind of one of our staples. We do it through controllables like you've already talked about: effort, attitude, work ethic, appreciation, and support of one another. And then our kind of last 3 core values in the pyramid for our upperclassmen to really embody and try to mature toward and develop toward, it's relationships, it's selflessness, and it's self-mastery. So self-mastery is kind of the very top block of our pyramid. And I did it in that way just so you have some metrics to kind of achieve toward for each year you're in the program, right? You got year 1, year 2, year 3, and then your outer 3 core values, and this will all make sense when I send you the image. Those are kind of by your last year, we want it all. We want that to be the full picture of your moral compass. That's layered upon your own practices of faith and spirituality and your own beliefs as, you were raised and imprinted on by your parents and things. But that is ultimately layered on top. That's your moral compass. The decisions you make are weighed against some of those core values. And so it gives you the confidence ultimately to make decisions knowing your intentions are connected to one of those 9, if not multiple of those 9 core values, that even if you make a mistake, you can fail forward, you can grow, you'll be supported in that area. Your coaches aren't going to judge you or say you're dumb or stupid if you're acting truly on a core value, and you can, anchor that with certainty. So ultimately, like I said, I kind of went through those 3 things in the beginning, but that's one of the biggest pieces for us, is giving our athletes that ability within our culture to have some autonomy. Like, hey, you are responsible for making your decisions here, but those decisions need to be backed and anchored by some of the lessons that we're going to help you through as a young, medium, or old athlete. You know what I mean? As you climb the I don't want to say ranks, but the ages of our program. And all of those things I said are irrelevant of your wins-loss, your record. You can do everything I just said without being a winner or a loser. So if we can detach performance in that way and kind of pull that out of the equation, we can measure things at a much more, tolerable way, to where it won't create such an identity crisis in these athletes, right? So we give them a playbook that they can just study on their own and understand. We give them a little bit of those moral, compass that they can make better decisions from. We don't punish. The brain isn't fully developed till you're 26. We know you're going to make some poor decisions, right? But if we can make the best decision we can at that given time in our lives and grow from that with our growth mindset, I think the success and the performance of our team is driven forward in a positive way. Are we going to win every single match? That's not what I'm saying. But when we look at a season from fall, August to May, we're going to be very proud of that season, regardless of if we win a championship. Obviously, that's the goal. I don't want anybody to think that we're a top program because we don't want to win. Of course we want to win. But we're able to recognize that our growth is in the doing, is in the being and not necessarily always the doing, right? If we can be things, then some of the doing will flow from that. I got that from a podcast of Michael Gervais. I'm sure you've heard of him. He's a famous sports psych. He actually, so that's something he always said, and I just gravitated toward, like, if I ever had to pick a player, like I mentioned earlier, with the, kind of the dichotomy of parents picking this scenario versus this, if I had to pick a player who erred on all those core values and got better and improved versus someone who won 30 matches for me, I know it's hard to believe, but to me, the player that buys into growth mindset is the person I want to coach, right? Now, that person will find lifelong winning. The person who just wants to win matches will find it here, but then they leave and they have no understanding of what's next. And I feel like it's a responsibility as a college coach, especially at this age. You are taking and sitting parents and players down and telling them, hey, we're going to give you so many things. Part of that job, I think, my opinion, you owe them that responsibility of imprinting something developmentally to prepare them for adulthood, not just winning. And so to package it succinctly, right, I really try to hammer home that idea of culture and core values connecting to the athletes that you have. So that way, when they do fail, because ultimately they're going to fail. If you're a coach that thinks you're going to be perfect and win everything, you've got a rude awakening coming, right? You're going to love that moment of failure, because that's what connects the coach and the athlete. It's how you respond as a coach and how you move forward in those moments. That's how your athlete's going to do that in their lives, as they mature. So it's a really big moment. And if you have, the core values, if you have the pyramid, if you have the, I've said it a few times, but that compass to guide you, it just makes those hard, it shortens those hard times, you know what I mean? Because nobody wants to live in those hard times. But I think that's where the greatness of coaches really comes out. And to go back to what I first started when you asked this question, I've been very lucky to be around some of the best coaches who understood that. And I've pulled all these ideas for them. So however much I want to say it's my ideas, I think it's my action coming from some really, really great coaches that I've had the privilege of working for or learning from. I mean, I'm down the hallway from Alan Knight, who's one of the best coaches, you know, in the sport of volleyball. And so, you know, being lucky in a way to be able to absorb information from people like that, I think that's given me a little bit of a head start on all that stuff you said of systems and how to lead and how to organize and package information to kind of accomplish to get from point A to point B in a short window of time. I think that's the big thing to consider as well. College coaches, you have a year to 4 years to do this, to drastically transform something that's happened for 18 years of someone's life. You know what I mean? And so the margins are very thin. So the more this is my belief, the more we can organize on the front side and in a proactive way, the delivery, not that it has to be right every time, but the delivery is in a way that the athletes can get behind. You know what I mean? If you give them that mission and that purpose, they will get behind it. At first, they don't know why, but then you just keep being consistent in those first couple weeks of season. I mean, we're in week 6 right now, and we've had every week a team meeting on culture, on a training. We sat down with some Marines this year who walked us through team connection, followership, leadership, culture. So we are actively every week spending 3 to 4 hours of our practice time doing these things. So it's not just, hey, you've got 8 hours or 20 hours of practice per week. We're spending a good chunk of that front loading. Like I said, just 1,000 times telling these guys, this is the way we're going to go this year. And then we got to actually stick to it. And then, if we need to calibrate, we do that for the next year. So there are ways to kind of deviate and come back. And that's the natural, I'd say hardships of a season, right? What happens if there's a major injury? What happens if a player wants to leave? What happens if you add a player, right? There's always hiccups. But I think when you arm them with purpose, they can be safe and they can feel like they are trusted in that team. And then they can be themselves and ultimately give you what you've recruited them to give, if that makes sense.
Hey there. Are you really serious about your D1 dreams? Playing beach volleyball in college? And does this whole recruiting process feels like a black box to you where you don't really know what to do and what the coaches are looking for? Well, you're not the only one, but I may have a solution for you. But before we'll get to that, let me ask you, are you really serious about your dreams? Because if yes, then you need to step up and take ownership of your actions. And the best way to do it is get out and start researching information. Now, there's not much information about this whole process and what coaches are looking for, is there? Well, so for this exact reason, I created this library of conversations with D1 beach coaches so you can learn and understand what are their green flags, what are their red flags, what are they looking for, who they really want on the team, who they really don't want on the team. And all this information will help you triangulate yourself and navigate this process with much more confidence and with success at the end. You can find me on YouTube or become a part of my community directly. You get way more information as a part of the community, but YouTube will do fine. So what you waiting for? Get in, I'll see you on the inside, and let's navigate the process with confidence. And if you need more help, just contact me, and I'll help you figure out how to make your dreams come true. All right? So let's go. It totally makes sense. Thank you for sharing this. It also speaks volumes of you as a personality. There's so many beautiful sentences and motivational quotes in this world, but it's on us, and in this case, as you're talking about it, it's on you to hear them at the right time, and you're having your mind open and able to transform them into something that helps other people and transfers the message to another receiver, because most of the time it's very unidirectional. You receive that, a lot of people receive that. We all hear all these quotes and all these philosophies, but not many of us are able, to then move them on further to somebody else with some added value as you are doing. So that speaks to your mentors, as you can call them, but also, to how your mind is open. So the girls are really, really happy to have you, and the program is. And from what you said, I have two questions that stand out of that. So the first one would be simple. A question, simple answer, probably not. But how do you, in the light of these things, how are you defining success before season, during, perhaps as a feedback, and then after season? Because at the end of the day, you are a coach. This is a team. It needs to win. The racing, as I heard, the racing horse needs to feel the victory. And so how you position it so the girls stay motivated. And at the end of the season, you made so many NCAA finals. How do you then tell, okay, this was success?
Yeah. I mean, that's a great question. I think when you slice it like that into different layers of fall, spring, and then kind of NCAA postseason or conference and NCAA, it definitely looks different. I think if you look at it in totality, I'll answer that first. To me, it's unity. How united is our team? Are we in the fall, and this is just an example of unity, we play in pairs tournaments, typically. When one pair is done, I mean, your coaches you've got 8 pairs, 9, 10 pairs running around. Your coaches are missing a lot of things. We work 10 straight hours, pair 1, pair 4, pair 7, pair 6, you're jumping around. So there's a lot of the team stuff that you miss. But as a team, are we recognizing the unity of when you're done going and cheering for your teammates? Are we recognizing that, hey, your teammates are playing, reffing, playing? Are you bringing them some snacks and some lunch and some hydration? Like, are you doing those little things that seem so trivial, that seem so like maybe a parent would do that, or maybe they're not important, right? But that to me shows thoughtfulness. That shows kindness. That shows that you're thinking about your teammates, that you're wanting them to be successful, not that you're hoping for their failure. And that's not what lack of action would say, but in a sense, you're making it very clear by fueling your teammates, by cheering for their success. It's very clear what you are being as a teammate, right? Whereas inaction could be misinterpreted, but action cannot be misinterpreted. It is very clear that you are focused on your teammates, right? So that's just one example of how I look at it in the fall. In the spring, when I announce, No.
I'm just putting, after I'm going to be editing that, instead of my 2 fingers, there's going to be 2 red exclamation marks, because what you just said, I think, is a quote and sentence everybody has to remember, that inaction can be misinterpreted, but action cannot. That's beautiful. Thank you for that. Sorry for the interruption, but I had to.
No worries. And then as we move to spring, unity looks a little different. It looks, when I announced the first lineup, I look to the names that aren't called. Are you upset? Understandably, but then do you pat your teammate on the back that was, and they go, hey, I'm going to compete with you now. Like, my job now is not to get in the lineup, it's to make you ready. And that is a hard thing. And that's why we don't do stuff like that until spring. We've had so many instances and episodes and calibrations of those responses that go the wrong way, that when we announce our first lineup, we want to feel, and I want those 10 names that are called, because we schedule super tough. We open at Pepperdine, always a good team. Marcio, I mean, he's always doing something new and innovative, and he's going to challenge you. We go from there, we go straight to UCLA, USC, LMU, and we play some of the top teams. So if we don't have the belief in one another, that united front to take on early challenge, we're basically kicking the can down the road. We're eventually going to have to embrace unity. And when we do, that is when we're really going to unlock some things for us. And the sooner we can do that, if it's in fall, it's usually pretty solid in fall, because there's nothing really on the line for an athlete, for their identity, because everybody gets to kind of play in our program in the fall. But it's that moment of when that first lineup comes out, and historically we've had 20 some odd players, so almost half of your team is not called on to do their dream, what do we look like? Are the people that called so wrapped up in their own success that they don't reach out to support their teammates that are alternates? And are the alternates so caught up in their woes and their victim mindset or fixed mindset that they can't grow their situation and become a better teammate, and if not, a better alternate for us, and possibly a starter by the end of the year? So that moment in time, I always like to take a cross section and look at what does that team look like when we announce first lineup. And then as the season goes, there's always a tipping point in our program because we work so hard and we do lose some matches early on, middle. Last year we went to LSU, we went 0-4. We had a nightmare of a schedule, no one's fault. I accepted it. We had weather, so we ended up playing 3 matches in a day. We played Texas, TCU, and LSU all in one day. We lost 3-2 to Texas, and they were on fire, and we knew it was going to be a dogfight, and we barely lost. We lost to TCU in the same manner, who was number 1 ranked at the time, and so we knew that was. And then we got weather delayed, and we had to play LSU at 1 a.m.
Wow.
1 a.m. and we played at 9 a.m., 1 p.m., and we sat around all day waiting. And I think we started at like 12:15, and our last match finished because, of course, that went the distance, 3-2, and we lost. And they finished. We got home to the hotel, all said and done, film, 3:30. We had to wake up at 6 to play FSU at 9, you know? And so, like, that was a big, and like I said, growth mindset here. I'm not blaming anyone. I accepted the schedule. I knew it was going to be a challenge. We wanted to get out of there 2-2. We went 0-4. We're looking around the room at the end of that tournament like, what do we do next? Players called a player-only meeting. I met with some individuals one-on-one because we stuck around. That was the hardest part. We finished Saturday early. We had team bonding on one of those, experiential cruises out on the Mississippi River, out in New Orleans on the river there. And so we all had to sit around in our misery, right? We're all competitive. We just lost. We're all pissed off. And so we had a lot of one-on-one time there. And that was actually the best thing for us. That was kind of the tipping point in our season last year where we got to look around at each other. And we some people got new opportunities, right? And people that were in kind of lost their opportunities. But they didn't pout. They accepted their role. And they became the best teammates for our final push when we were going up against Cal Poly out on conference. And it was, neutral sand. We're out in Santa Monica. We had a great contingent, but Cal Poly, they've got a huge roster, and they're just a tremendous program. And it was neck and neck. And, everybody was thinking it was going to come down to our ones, who are one of our best pairs. And they were playing Piper and Aaron Inskeep, a great team who we had their number all year. And they were up on us, so it felt like, oh, man, if this comes down to the wire, we're in trouble. And our threes just capitalized and snuck out a win. Wow. And I kid you not, the coolest part of that moment, of the unity I saw in that moment, was our ones who were still playing. As soon as that team finished, they just stopped their rally mid-play, charged the court, obviously shook hands, were very respectful, but they were the first ones to, not thank their teammates, but to celebrate. Like, it always came down to them. So when you're a recruit, that's your dream, right? It's 2-2 in a duel. You want to be in that game-clinching moment. Right. Well, guess what? They had the opportunity, and they were so excited to bail on that opportunity and go celebrate with their teammates who were down. They were down 13-8 in the third or something like that. I might be getting the score wrong. But they came back, flipped the script against a great Cal Poly team. And, the crowd was kind of all waiting for it to come down to the ones. And so that moment showed me that celebration of how united as a team we were. That's how I define success. Can we, in that moment, put the egos aside, right? There's so much. I talked about with the team today in our meeting. We as athletes, we have these things called bruised egos, right? We have these egos as athletes that we are the big fish. We are the top dog in our path. And then you come into a program where you are an equal, and you are praised for being an equal. We want you to be great, but at the same time, we want all of us to present our, arm in arm with one another. That's the challenge. How united can we be? And so you're taught, right? Like, you've got to have this armor, all this armor on you that, when things don't go your way, you're insulated. It can't be your fault. Yeah. You have protection here and here and here and here, right? And so to see a team drop that armor and just be together. That was a really cool moment for me as a coach. And when I take, again, the 30,000 foot view unity, that's how it presents at each of those different times. Now, NCAAs, we haven't cracked the code yet. We've done well. We've gotten there a bunch. We had early success. My first year, we took second. My second year, third. My fourth year, fifth. You know, we did really well early. And now we've just kind of the last 3 years been knocked out first round. But we're improving. I really see the improvement. Last year, I think, was just we ran into FSU and they were playing great ball. And they were a great team and it was a great battle. Couple tape aces, couple line, balls on the line that just didn't go our way. So I'm excited with this group to continue that journey this year because I think we're slowly unraveling some things in a good way. But everything, the foundation, those cross-sectional cuts, it's all about unity, right? Now, within that, there's some big things. There's craft, there's conditioning, there's your talent, right? You got to have the talent to be in that conversation. So don't get me wrong, we're focused on other silos. But when you take that picture of your team as a coach, this is what I look at. I look at that moment when my players this year at a conference tournament, the ones that got benched, not Malia and Taylor, the ones I just described that ran off their court to celebrate, but I saw players that got removed from the lineup and other players got an opportunity. Those three players were doing the cheers and they were coordinating the shouts and the energy and running from court to court. Like that video plays in my mind of, okay, that if I had to build a formula, there's that type of stuff. And it's not just cheering, it's the selflessness to give after your dream essentially was taken away. It's that acceptance that, hey, you know what? My number wasn't called this time. That doesn't mean I am a bad human being. That doesn't mean I am a bad athlete. That means I now have an opportunity to be a great teammate and promote another person's success, which for anyone that's ever been told they're great, that is one of the hardest things to do. You know what I mean? Because of those bruised egos that get in the way in your mind of that true selflessness. Because as a competitor, no recruit is going to sit down and say that is their selling point. But by the end of your career, that can be one of the most transformational moments in your life when you accept that you're not competing against your teammates, you're competing against yourself.
Right. Wow. That was so deep and so intense. It is. It's unbelievable. Thank you again for sharing. It sounds like this culture piece. First of all, it sounds like you're 100% psychologist. You're 100%.
I'm married to a marriage and family therapist, so she gets credit for all of this. My wife is she's my mental coach, man. She's the best. So I'm very lucky I have that.
And subsequently, girls are lucky to have you there, and so is Long Beach. And I'm just thinking about this. Seems to be those three building blocks of your pyramid that you mentioned, of your core values. So we came to, or you described how you define success, which is amazing because it feels like you really, if the girls are able to follow and tune in to this frequency and tune into this philosophy, there's essentially no way to fail. You know what I mean? It feels like,
in the traditional sense, maybe, right? You might lose a match, but in the sense of what we're trying to develop, you're absolutely right.
That gives them so much safety. It's like amazing safety net for them, and that's wonderful. And after defining that success, now you have this lens that you look at your potential recruits, right? How, because this is, even though I know girls are athletic and everything, is this the lens, and how are you using it in your recruiting process to find the right players? Because one thing is when the girls are growing up and there might be, ideas, or you might have a sense of how they act within the community, but you get a very narrow view of what is actually happening. You might get an interaction with her teammate, you get an interaction with her parents, but how do you actually apply this lens? And how does that lens that you're looking through, or the spyglass, feel and look like for you during this recruiting process?
Yeah. I mean, and that's another this is a great area to discuss. I mean, I think for me,
did you like this conversation? It was pretty good, wasn't it? I have more for you. I have conversations with D1 coaches, and experts, and all the tools and guides and whatever you can think of to succeed on your D1 journey and fulfill your D1 dreams. So what you waiting for? Jump right in, and I'll see you on the inside. And if you need more help, just contact me, and I'll help you make your dreams come true. All right? Until later.